Jamie Dimon sat alone at the head of a 30-foot mahogany table, staring at a single sheet of paper that terrified him more than the 2008 financial crash ever did. The CEO of JPMorgan Chase, the titan of Wall Street, was used to dealing with crises of capital. He could fix a liquidity crunch. He could negotiate with presidents. He could intimidate regulators. But he could not intimidate a generation that simply didn't care. The paper was a memo from Human Resources. It wasn't about layoffs. It was about walkouts. In the last 48 hours, across the banking sector, retail giants, and tech firms, turnover rates had spiked by 400%. "They aren't asking for raises, sir," a nervous aide had told him an hour ago. "They aren't negotiating for better benefits. They are just leaving. They are uploading videos, tagging them #OptOut, and walking out the door." Dimon crushed the paper in his hand. He had demanded a return to office. He had threatened to fire anyone who didn't show up 5 days a week. He thought fear would bring them back to their cubicles. He was wrong. At that exact moment, in a cramped apartment in Austin, Texas, a 24-year-old named Leo held his phone up. He was wearing his Starbucks uniform. The live stream counter showed 45,000 viewers. "Jamie Dimon wants to know where we are," Leo said, looking into the lens with a mix of exhaustion and defiance. "He thinks we're lazy. He thinks we're entitled. But Jamie, do you know how much rent is? Do you know that I work 60 hours a week and I still sleep on a mattress on the floor?" Leo took off his green apron. He dropped it on the floor. "We aren't quitting the job," Leo said, his voice trembling slightly. "We are quitting the game. Because the game is rigged. And we are done playing." He pressed end stream. This wasn't just a resignation. It was a signal that traveled through the fiber optic cables to New York, to London, to Tokyo. It was the sound of the social contract ripping apart. Welcome to November 2025. The economy isn't crashing because of a stock market bubble. It's crashing because the engine, the workforce, has decided to turn itself off. They call it the Great Detachment, the opt-out revolution. But for the panic-stricken boardrooms of the Fortune 500, it feels like an invisible strike that never ends. Today we are going to take you inside this silent revolution. We will meet the CEOs who are desperate to regain control, and the young rebels who are choosing poverty over what they call slavery. Is this the end of capitalism as we know it? Or is it the beginning of a new, dark age? To understand why Leo dropped his apron and why Jamie Dimon is sweating, we have to look at the numbers, not the GDP, the real numbers. For 70 years, the American deal was simple. You give the corporation 40 hours of your week, and the corporation gives you enough money to buy a house, a car, and raise a family. That was the trade. But somewhere between the 2008 crash and the inflation spike of 2024, the deal changed. Chloe, a former marketing assistant from Chicago, sits in a converted van parked in a forest in Oregon. She is 26. She has a master's degree, and she is homeless by choice. "I did the math," Chloe says, brewing coffee on a camping stove. "My salary was $4,500 a month. My rent for a studio apartment was $2,800. Student loans were $600. Food, transport, insurance. I was left with -$50 every month." She laughs, a dry, cynical sound. "Why should I wake up at 6 a.m., commute for an hour, sit under fluorescent lights, and deal with a screaming boss just to get poorer? It's not laziness. It's logic. If the input is soul-crushing work and the output is poverty, why would I keep pulling the lever? This realization that hard work no longer guarantees survival, let alone success, is the virus infecting the system. It's what experts call nihilistic economics. The empire, of course, strikes back. Jamie Dimon and his peers didn't take this lying down. The initial response from the establishment was ridicule. Op-eds in major newspapers called Gen Z snowflakes and the softest generation. Then came the threats. In a leaked Zoom call from a major tech company, a VP was heard saying, "If they don't want to work, we'll replace them. Accelerate the AI integration. Get the robots into the warehouses. Starve them back to the office." It was a game of chicken. The corporations believed that eventually the kids would run out of money. They would get hungry. They would come crawling back to the cubicle. But they underestimated the adaptability of a generation raised on the internet. We travel to the Mojave Desert. Here, the opt-out movement isn't a hashtag, it's a physical place. They call it Base Camp Zero. It looks like a scene from Mad Max, but cleaner. Thousands of young people, living in retrofitted school buses, vans, and tents. There is no landlord here. There is no HOA. They trade using barter, crypto, or local digital currencies. They share electricity from solar arrays. They grow their own vegetables in hydroponic pods. "We aren't waiting for the system to save us," says Ghost, a former software engineer who now maintains the camp's internet mesh network. "The system wants us to be debt slaves. It wants us to buy things we don't need, to impress people we don't like. Here, I work 4 hours a day fixing solar panels. The rest of the time, I read, I hike, I talk to people." This is the nightmare of the consumer economy. Capitalism relies on you being tired, stressed, and hungry for convenience. It needs you to order Uber Eats because you're too exhausted to cook. It needs you to buy therapy apps because you're depressed. If you step off the treadmill, if you stop buying, the GDP collapses. This isn't just an American problem. The virus of resignation has mutated and spread. In China, they call it tang ping, lying flat. The youth simply refuse to participate in the rat race. In South Korea, the Sampo generation has given up on courtship, marriage, and children. In the UK, quiet quitting has evolved into loud leaving. It is a global vote of no confidence in the future. We spoke to an economist from the London School of Economics, Dr. Aris Thorne. He looks worried. "We are looking at a demographic collapse coupled with a labor withdrawal," Thorne explains. "Who is going to drive the trucks? Who is going to nurse the elderly? Who is going to build the bridges? You cannot run a civilization on influencers and van lifers. If this trend continues for another 6 months, we will see supply chain failures that make COVID look like a dress rehearsal." This isn't just an American problem. The virus of resignation has mutated and spread. In China, they call it tang ping, lying flat. The youth simply refuse to participate in the rat race. In South Korea, the Sampo generation has given up on courtship, marriage, and children. In the UK, quiet quitting has evolved into loud leaving. It is a global vote of no confidence in the future. We spoke to an economist from the London School of Economics, Dr. Aris Thorne. He looks worried. "We are looking at a demographic collapse coupled with a labor withdrawal," Thorne explains. "Who is going to drive the trucks? Who is going to nurse the elderly? Who is going to build the bridges?" You cannot run a civilization on influencers and van lifers. If this trend continues for another 6 months, we will see supply chain failures that make COVID look like a dress rehearsal. The tension reached its breaking point just before Thanksgiving 2025. The hashtag opt-out organizers on TikTok announced a coordinated action, Blackout Friday. The goal? Zero spending, zero working. A total boycott of the biggest shopping weekend of the year. Jamie Dimon and the Retail Federation lobbied the White House. There were whispers of the president invoking the Defense Production Act to force essential workers back to their posts. The rhetoric became martial. Economic terrorists, one senator called the strikers. But how do you arrest 1 million people for simply staying home? It's easy to romanticize the rebellion, but the reality is cold. Back in the desert, winter is coming. The solar batteries are draining faster. The food supplies are thinning. Chloe admits that she misses hot showers. She misses stability. "My parents think I'm insane," she whispers, wrapping a blanket around herself. "They say I'm throwing my life away. And sometimes at 3 a.m. when it's freezing, I think they might be right. But then I look at my friends back in the city. They are on antidepressants. They are having panic attacks on Sunday nights. I might be cold, but I'm free." This is the crucial question. What is the price of freedom? And is this generation willing to pay it, even if it means a lower standard of living? As the Blackout Friday approached, the corporations blinked. A consortium of major tech and finance companies, led essentially by the pressure Dimon faced, announced a new pilot program. The 4-day work week, 20% salary increase, remote work guaranteed. It was a desperate olive branch, a bribe to get the workers back. The notifications lit up the phones in the desert camp. The debate raged. Was it enough? Was it a trap? "They are scared," Leo said in a new video, his face illuminated by the campfire. "They see that we have the power. But if we go back now, we lose everything. We don't want a better cage. We want to be outside." The dust hasn't settled yet. The offices in Manhattan are still half empty. The "for lease" signs are still up. Jamie Dimon is still rich, but he is no longer the master of the universe. He is a captain trying to steer a ship where half the crew has jumped overboard. The lost generation isn't lost. They are just looking for a map that hasn't been drawn yet. They are asking a question that humanity hasn't asked since the Industrial Revolution. What is life for? Is it to produce, to consume, or is it simply to be? The system survived the crash of 1929. It survived 2008. But can it survive a generation that simply says no? The next time you walk past a "Help Wanted" sign, don't just see a labor shortage, see a revolution. The movement splintered. Some packed their vans and drove back to the city, lured by the promise of security. Others, the hardliners, dug in deeper.